You simply disappear. She didn't react. She just wrote down every word, and no one dared to look. The sound came first. Pen on paper. Slow. Steady. Relentless. Isabel Grant stood 3 feet from table 12, writing in a small leather notebook, and everyone in the room could feel it. The wrongness of it. The fact that she was still standing there. That she hadn't left yet. That she was writing. She didn't look up. Ethan Caldwell leaned back in his chair. Fingers steepled. Wine glass within reach. And kept talking. He'd been talking for 8 minutes. She hadn't said a word. Most people don't understand what separates success from mediocrity, he said. His voice smooth. Unhurried. Filling the space like he owned it. It's not luck. It's not talent. He paused. Let the silence stretch. Then, it's presence. He gestured toward her with 2 fingers. Casual. Dismissive. Like pointing out a typo on a menu. You need to work on that. The woman at table 9 stopped chewing. The couple at table 15 went completely still. Successful people occupy space, Ethan continued, his tone patient, almost kind. They don't apologize for existing. They don't fade into the background. He tilted his head, studied her. You. Another pause. Longer this time. You disappear. Isabel's pen stopped. 1 second. 2.3. The silence became unbearable. Someone cleared their throat at the bar. Forks scraped against a plate. Then her pen moved again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. She clicked it closed. Sharp. Final. And met his eyes for the first time. Her face was completely calm. Not angry. Not hurt. Not anything. Just there. Is there anything else you'd like this evening, sir? Her voice quiet, professional, empty. Ethan smiled. Not a smirk, not condescension, something worse, pity. Just the check, he said. Then, as if doing her a favor, and maybe a little advice, since I'm here. He leaned forward, lowered his voice, like he was sharing something private, something valuable. The restaurant felt smaller. You seem stuck, he said softly. I've seen that look before. People who've stopped asking themselves the hard questions, who've accepted their limits. He let the words settle. Across from him, Michael Horn, gray temples, Patek Philippe on his wrist, shifted in his seat. He didn't speak, but his fingers tightened around his water glass. Ethan didn't notice. The question is, he continued, eyes never leaving Isabel's face. Are you going to do something about it? Or just keep serving tables? The air went dead. Tea table 9. The woman in pearls whispered something. They both looked away. Tea the bar. The bartender found something very important to clean. Tea table 15. The young man reached for his girlfriend's hand. Squeezed. Everyone heard and no one moved. Isabel stood there, still holding the closed pen, still looking at him. Her breathing didn't change. Her posture didn't shift. But something so small most people would miss it, tightened at the corner of her jaw. She nodded once. Single, precise, movement. Then she turned, and walked toward the kitchen. Her steps even, measured, controlled. Behind her, Ethan picked up his wine glass, swirled it once, took a slow sip. Some people just don't have the instinct, he said quietly. Michael didn't respond. His eyes stayed on Isabel's back. Until she disappeared through the kitchen doors. His expression wasn't agreement, it was dread. Tea table 9. The woman in pearls didn't finish her meal. Tea table 15. The couple asked for their check early. Tea the bar. The server pressed her palms flat against the counter. Exhaled slowly. Like she'd been holding her breath. Isabel pushed through the kitchen doors. The noise hit her. Metal on metal. Voices calling orders. The hiss of a searing pan. She walked past the line cooks. Past the dishwasher, past the prep station. TO's small wooden desk in the corner. Beside the walk-in freezer, she opened her notebook, flipped to a fresh page, and wrote. Her handwriting perfectly steady, her face unchanged, but the pen pressed harder than it needed to, hard enough to leave an indent on the page beneath. The kitchen was noise, controlled chaos, metal against metal, flames hissing. Orders shouted in overlapping voices. Isabel moved through it like water. fluid, unbothered. She reached the small desk beside the walk-in freezer, set down her notebook, pulled out her phone, and typed a single message. Table 12. Ethan Caldwell. Full assessment complete. She hit send, slipped the phone back into her apron, her expression unchanged. Not relief, not anger, not satisfaction, just completion. Behind her, the head chef, Marcus, glanced over from the pass. "You good?" Isabel nodded. "Yeah, I'm good." He studied her a second longer than necessary, then turned back to the tickets. Isabel picked up the notebook again, flipped back 3 pages, and read what she'd written. Not just tonight, but over 47 days. Observations, patterns, details most people wouldn't notice. How the hostess greeted regulars versus walk-ins. How long the kitchen took to recover from a rush. How the manager handled complaints. How the staff spoke to each other when no one was watching. And now, how a man with money and confidence treated someone he thought had neither. She closed the notebook, slid it into her bag, and exhaled. Slowly, quietly, like letting go of something heavy. Out in the dining room, Ethan signed the check. Left exactly 20%. Not more. Not less. The kind of tip that said I'm fair, not generous. He stood, buttoned his jacket. Michael stood with him, but slower. "Ready?" Ethan asked. Michael nodded, but his eyes drifted toward the kitchen doors. "Just once." "Yeah. Let's go." They walked toward the exit. Ethan moved with easy confidence. Michael walked half a step behind, his jaw still tight. At the host stand, Diane smiled politely. "Thank you for dining with us, Mr. Caldwell." Ethan returned the smile. Warm, professional. "Always a pleasure, Diane." He meant it. To him, the evening had been unremarkable. A good meal, a decent wine, a small kindness extended to someone who needed it. He didn't see the way Diane's smile tightened. Didn't notice her fingers gripping the podium harder than necessary. Didn't hear the breath she released the moment the door closed. Isabel came back onto the floor 20 minutes later. The dinner rush winding down. Tables clearing. Candles burning low. She cleared table 9. Then table 15. Same quiet efficiency. At the bar, Jenna leaned over. "You okay?" Isabel met her eyes. "Yeah, I'm okay." Her voice steady, calm, convincing. Jenna hesitated, then nodded, but didn't look convinced. Isabel picked up the tray, turned toward the kitchen, and stopped. Just for a second. Her hand tightened around the edge. Her jaw shifted. Her eyes closed, then opened, and she kept walking. Across town, Ethan sat in the back of a town car, scrolling through emails. Michael sat beside him, silent, staring out the window. "You're quiet," Ethan said without looking up. Michael didn't respond immediately. Then, "You ever think about how you come across?" Ethan glanced over, frowning. "What do you mean?" "Tonight. That waitress. What about her? You don't think that was a bit much?" Ethan's frown deepened. Not defensive, just genuinely confused. "I was trying to help." She looked stuck. "I know what it's like to." "She didn't ask for help," Michael said quietly. Ethan stared at him. "So I'm supposed to just say nothing?" Michael leaned back, shook his head. "Forget it." "No. You brought it up. What's the problem?" Michael was silent for a long moment. Then, The problem is you didn't see her face. What? After you said all that, you didn't look at her face. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it. He wanted to argue, to say of course I looked. But the truth was, he hadn't. Not really. He'd been looking at an idea, a role, a person he assumed she was, not the person standing in front of him. The car pulled up to his building. Ethan got out without another word. Michael stayed in the car, watched him disappear through the glass doors, then pulled out his phone, stared at the screen, and didn't make the call he was thinking about making. Not yet. Back at the restaurant, Isabel hung up her apron, grabbed her coat, said good night to Marcus, to Jenna, to Diane, and walked out into the cool evening air. She stood on the sidewalk for a moment, breathing, just breathing, then pulled out her phone. One new message. Assessment received. Decision pending. Will advise within 48 hours. She read it twice, locked the screen, slipped it into her pocket, and started walking. Her steps slow, steady, deliberate. Behind her, the restaurant glowed warm against the dark street. Soft light, low music, the kind of place people came to feel like they belonged. Isabel kept walking, and didn't look back. 48 hours, that's how long it took for everything to shift. Isabel spent them the way she always did, working, observing, waiting. She served tables, smiled when expected, listened when spoken to, and wrote everything down. The restaurant hummed around her like it always had, but something was different now. She could feel it in the way Diane watched her, in the way Marcus asked if she needed anything, in the way Jenna hovered closer than usual. They didn't know what she'd written in that notebook, but they knew it mattered. On the second night, Isabel's phone buzzed during her break. She read the message. Her expression didn't change. She typed 2 words. Understood. Proceeding. Slipped the phone back, picked up her tray, and went back to work. Ethan Caldwell didn't think about the waitress again. Not consciously, but something lingered, a weight he couldn't name. It wasn't guilt. He didn't believe he'd done anything wrong. More like unfinished business. He told himself it didn't matter, that she was fine, that he'd been kind, but Michael's words kept surfacing. You didn't see her face. On the second day, Ethan had lunch with his father. Edward Caldwell, 66, silver hair, Rolex. Daytona, a man who'd built an empire on precision and reputation. They sat at a private table near the window. For 10 minutes, they talked business, projections, acquisitions, board votes. Then Edward set down his fork. I had an interesting call yesterday. His tone casual, but something sharp underneath. Ethan looked up. Yeah. From Daniel Frost. Ethan's fork paused. Daniel Frost, owner of Frost Hospitality Group, and one of Edward's oldest friends. What did he want? Edward leaned back, studied his son. He wanted to know if you'd had dinner at Harlow and Vine recently. Ethan's stomach tightened. I did. Why? Edward picked up his water glass, took a slow sip, set it down. Apparently, you made an impression. Ethan frowned. What kind of impression? The kind that gets back to the owner. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Ethan set down his fork. Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. You spoke to a server. A woman. Gave her some advice. Ethan's jaw tightened. I was trying to help. That's not how Daniel saw it. What did he say? Edward leaned forward, voice quieter, harder. He said you embarrassed her. In front of his entire dining room. I didn't. He said multiple guests complained. Ethan went still. He said she's not just some server. The air went cold. What do you mean? Edward's expression didn't change. I mean, you just lectured an angel investor about ambition. The words hit like a hammer. Ethan's face drained. What? Her name is Isabel Grant. She's been working undercover at Harlow and Vine for 3 months, evaluating the business for a potential investment. He paused. Daniel was counting on that investment. $50 million. Edward's voice dropped. You cost him that. Ethan couldn't breathe. Dad, I didn't. She pulled out yesterday. 1-line email. Assessment complete. Investment declined. He looked at his son like seeing him for the first time. Daniel called me because Harlow and Vine is in my building. Because you're my son. And because he wanted to know what I was going to do about it. Ethan's throat closed. I didn't know. That's the problem, Edward said quietly. You didn't ask. Ethan left in a daze, walked 3 blocks without seeing anything. His phone buzzed. A text from Michael. We need to talk. Now. Ethan stared at the message, typed back. I know. He stood on the corner, people moving around him like water around a stone, and for the first time in years, Ethan Caldwell had no idea what to do. Back at Harlow and Vine, Isabel stood in the office behind the kitchen. Diane was with her, so was Marcus. Isabel's notebook sat open on the desk. So that's it? Diane asked quietly. Isabel nodded. That's it. And the investment declined. Diane exhaled slowly. Because of him. Isabel met her eyes. Because of a lot of things. She flipped through the notebook, page after page. The food is exceptional. The staff is strong. The location is perfect. She paused. But the culture allows people like him to feel comfortable. Diane's face tightened. We can't control the customers. No. Isabel agreed. But you didn't ask him to leave. You didn't intervene. You didn't do anything. Silence. Marcus looked away. Diane's jaw worked. Isabel closed the notebook. I don't invest in places that tolerate cruelty. Even the polite kind. She stood, picked up her bag. Thank you for the opportunity. You run a beautiful restaurant. She walked toward the door, stopped, looked back. For what it's worth, if he hadn't been there that night, my answer would have been different. Then she left. If you're still here, subscribe, and stay until the end. Ethan sat in his apartment that night. Lights off. City glowing through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He hadn't moved in over an hour. His phone sat on the coffee table. Silent. Accusing. He kept replaying the conversation with his father. Every word. Every pause. Every look. You didn't ask. He'd tried to help. That's all he'd been doing. Trying to help. But the more he sat with it, the more the memory shifted. He remembered her face now. Not the idea of her. The actual person. The way she'd stood there. Completely still. Completely silent. Writing. Why had she been writing? He'd assumed she was taking his order. Making notes. Doing her job. But now he understood. She'd been documenting, evaluating, deciding, and he'd given her everything she needed to walk away. His phone buzzed. He didn't look. Buzzed again. He reached for it. A text from Michael. I'm outside. Buzz me up. Ethan stared at the message. Then typed back. Not tonight. 3 dots appeared. Then, I'm not asking. Ethan exhaled. Pressed the intercom. Come up. Michael walked in 5 minutes later. Didn't wait for an invitation. Just walked past Ethan into the living room. Looked around. You sitting in the dark now? Ethan didn't answer. Michael turned on a lamp, sat down across from him. Your dad called me. Ethan's jaw tightened. Of course he did. He's worried. He's angry. Both, Michael said. Silence. Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You want to tell me what you're thinking? Ethan laughed. Short. Bitter. I don't know what I'm thinking. Try. Ethan looked at him. I thought I was helping. Michael nodded slowly. I know. So why does it feel like I? He stopped. Couldn't finish the sentence. Michael waited. Like you what? He prompted gently. Ethan's voice dropped. Like I hurt her. The words hung in the air. Heavy. True. Michael didn't argue. Didn't soften it. Just nodded. Yeah, he said quietly. You did. Ethan looked away. I didn't mean to. I know. Then why? Because intent doesn't erase impact, Michael said. His voice firm but not unkind. You thought you were being helpful. She experienced it as humiliation. Ethan's hands clenched. How was I supposed to know? Michael met his eyes. You could have asked. Silence. Long. Uncomfortable. You could have asked if she wanted advice, Michael continued. You could have listened to her answer. You could have treated her like someone with agency instead of a project. Ethan's throat tightened. I've never. I know, Michael interrupted gently. That's the problem. You've never had to think about it. He leaned back. People like us, we walk through the world assuming we're welcome, assuming our opinions matter, assuming we're doing good. He paused. But we don't stop to check if that's true. Ethan stared at the floor. What do I do? Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then, you apologize. Ethan looked up sharply. She pulled a $50 million investment. You think an apology is going to? I don't care about the investment, Michael said flatly. Neither should you. Ethan blinked. What? This isn't about the money, Ethan. It's about the fact that you treated another human being like she was less than you. Michael's voice was steady, unwavering. You fix that. Not because it'll get you something, but because it's the right thing to do. Ethan sat back, his mind racing. I don't even know where she is. Yes, you do, Michael said. She worked at Harlow and Vine for 3 months. Someone there knows how to reach her. He stood, looked down at his friend. But here's the thing, Ethan. If you do this, if you go looking for her, it can't be about fixing your reputation, or getting the investment back, or making yourself feel better. He paused. It has to be about her. He walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. And if you can't do that, if you can't put her dignity above your ego, then don't bother. The door closed behind him. Ethan sat alone in the dim light, his reflection staring back at him from the dark windows. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure he recognized the man looking back. Across the city, Isabel sat in her own apartment, smaller than Ethan's, but hers. She poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and opened her notebook one last time. Flipped to the page she'd written 2 nights ago. Read it again. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. Just clarity. She'd made the right call. She knew that. But it didn't make it easy. $50 million was a life-changing investment. For Daniel. For the staff. For everyone who depended on that restaurant. And she'd walked away. Not because the business wasn't good, but because the culture was broken. She closed the notebook, set it on the table, and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Ethan Caldwell was probably just now realizing what he'd done. She wondered if he'd try to fix it. Wondered if he even understood what fixing it would require. She took a sip of wine, and decided she wasn't going to make it easy for him. If he wanted to apologize, he'd have to earn it. 3 days passed. Ethan didn't sleep, didn't eat much, worked mechanically, answered emails, attended meetings, said the right things at the right times. But his mind was somewhere else. Every conversation looped back to the same place. You didn't see her face. You didn't ask. Intent doesn't erase impact. On the 4th morning, he made a decision. He got dressed, left his apartment, and took a car to Harlow and Vine. The restaurant wasn't open yet, but the door was unlocked. Ethan walked in. The dining room was empty, chairs still upside down on tables, soft morning light filtering through the windows. He heard voices in the back, followed them, found Diane in the small office behind the kitchen. She looked up when he entered. Her expression shifted immediately. Not welcoming, not hostile, just guarded. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, her voice professional, careful. Ethan stopped in the doorway. "I'm sorry to come unannounced." Diane set down her pen. "What can I do for you?" Ethan hesitated. This was harder than he'd expected. "I'm looking for Isabel Grant." Diane's face went completely still. "Why?" "I need to speak with her." "About what?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "About what happened the other night." Diane leaned back in her chair, studied him. "She doesn't work here anymore." "I know," Ethan said quietly. "But I thought, maybe you could tell me how to reach her." Diane was silent for a long moment. Then, "No." The word was soft, but absolute. Ethan blinked. "I just want to apologize." "Then you should have apologized when it happened." Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. Ethan stepped forward. "Please. I didn't know." "That she was an investor?" Diane interrupted. "That she mattered?" Ethan froze. "That's not." "Because that's what it sounds like, Mr. Caldwell. You want to apologize now that you know who she is. Now that there are consequences." Diane stood, met his eyes. "Where was the apology when you thought she was just a waitress?" The question hung in the air, sharp, undeniable. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it. He had no answer. Diane picked up her pen again. "I can't help you," she said, her tone final. "And even if I could, I wouldn't." She looked back down at her paperwork. "The door's that way." Ethan stood on the sidewalk outside, hands in his pockets, breath visible in the cold morning air. He'd failed. Again. His phone buzzed. His father. "Office." "Now." Ethan closed his eyes, exhaled slowly, then started walking. Edward Caldwell's office was on the 43rd floor, corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Ethan walked in without knocking. His father sat behind his desk, on the phone. He gestured for Ethan to sit, finished his call, hung up, and looked at his son. "Where have you been?" "Harlow and Vine." Edward's expression didn't change. "And she's not there. They won't tell me how to reach her." Edward nodded slowly. "Good." Ethan frowned. "What?" "I said good." Edward leaned back in his chair. "You going there was a mistake. I was trying to fix this." Edward interrupted. You can't fix this, Ethan. Not like that. Ethan's hands clenched. Then what am I supposed to do? Edward was quiet for a moment. Then he stood. Walked to the window. You want to know what Daniel told me? Ethan didn't answer. He said Isabel Grant is one of the smartest investors he's ever met. That she's built her entire reputation on one principle: she only backs people she respects. He turned to face his son. Not businesses. People. Ethan's throat tightened. And you humiliated her in public. In front of witnesses. In a place she was evaluating. Edward's voice was quiet, but every word landed like a blow. You didn't just cost Daniel an investment. You proved to her that his restaurant tolerates cruelty. He paused. That's not something an apology fixes. Ethan looked away. So what do I do? Edward walked back to his desk. Sat down. You accept that some things can't be undone. He picked up a folder. Slid it across the desk. And you learn from it. Ethan stared at the folder. Didn't touch it. What's that? A list, Edward said. Every business deal you've been part of in the last 5 years. Every contract. Every negotiation. He leaned forward. I want you to go through it. Line by line. And ask yourself one question. Who did I not see? Ethan looked up. Dad. Who did I dismiss? Edward continued. Who did I talk over? Who did I assume was less than me because of their title, their position, their role? His voice hardened. Because if you can't answer that question, if you can't look at your own behavior honestly, then you haven't learned anything. He stood. Walked toward the door. Stopped. You're my son, Ethan. And I love you. He looked back. But right now, I'm disappointed. The door closed behind him. Ethan sat alone, staring at the folder, his hands shaking. That night, Isabel received an email from an address she didn't recognize. The subject line was empty. She almost deleted it. But something made her open it. Inside, one sentence. I'm sorry. That's all. No explanation. No excuses. No request for forgiveness. Just 2 words. Isabel stared at the screen. Her finger hovered over the delete button. She didn't click it. Instead, she closed her laptop, stood, and walked to the window. The city stretched out before her. Millions of lights. Millions of lives. Somewhere out there, Ethan Caldwell was finally starting to understand. She didn't know if it was enough. Didn't know if it mattered. But it was something. She turned away from the window and didn't reply. 2 weeks went by. Ethan didn't send another email. Didn't try to find her. Didn't ask anyone for help. He just stopped and started paying attention. It began small. A meeting with his marketing team. He noticed the junior analyst, Sarah, 24, 6 months at the company, tried to speak 3 times. Each time, someone talked over her. Each time, she went quiet. Ethan had never noticed before. This time, he stopped the conversation. Sarah, he said. You had something to say? Everyone turned. She hesitated. It's fine. I can. No, Ethan said gently. I want to hear it. She looked around the table, then spoke. Her idea was good. Better than good. The team adopted it. After the meeting, she caught him in the hallway. Thank you, she said quietly. Ethan nodded. I should have been listening all along. She smiled. Small. Uncertain. But real. He started noticing other things. The way his assistant, Marcus, 52, 15 years with the company, always stayed late. Never complained. Never asked for time off. Ethan called him into his office. "When's the last time you took a vacation?" Marcus blinked. I don't remember. "Take 2 weeks," Ethan said. "Paid. Starting next month." Marcus stared at him. "Mr. Caldwell, I don't." "You've earned it," Ethan said firmly. "Take it." Marcus left looking dazed. Grateful. Seen. The folder his father had given him sat on Ethan's desk. Every night, he went through another section. Every night, he found another moment. Another person he'd dismissed. Another conversation he'd dominated. Another time he'd assumed his voice mattered more. It was excruciating. And necessary. 3 weeks after the incident, Michael stopped by Ethan's office. Unannounced. He stood in the doorway. "You look like hell," he said. Ethan glanced up. "Thanks." Michael walked in. Sat down. "I've been hearing things." "What kind of things?" "That you've changed." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm trying." Michael studied him. "It shows." They sat in silence for a moment. Then, "Have you heard from her?" Michael asked. Ethan shook his head. "No." "Did you expect to?" "No." Michael nodded slowly. "Good." Ethan looked up sharply. "What?" "I mean it," Michael said. "This isn't about her forgiving you. It's about you becoming someone worth forgiving." He leaned forward. "You're doing the work. That's what matters." Ethan looked away. "It doesn't feel like enough." "It's not supposed to," Michael said quietly. "That's the point." Isabel heard about the changes. Not from Ethan. From others. Diane called her one afternoon. "I thought you should know," she said. "Ethan Caldwell's been asking questions." Isabel's grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of questions?" "About the staff. About who felt dismissed. About what he could have done differently." Diane paused. "He came back to the restaurant. Not to see you. To apologize to me. To Marcus. To Jenna." Isabel was silent. "He said he was sorry for putting us in that position. For creating an environment where we felt we couldn't intervene." Diane's voice softened. "I don't know if it means anything to you. But I thought you should know." Isabel closed her eyes. "Thank you." She hung up. Sat in the quiet of her apartment. And felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But acknowledgement. He was trying. That didn't erase what he'd done. But it was something. A week later, Isabel attended a conference. Investors. Entrepreneurs. The usual networking. She was standing near the refreshment table when someone approached. A man in his 60s. Silver hair. Expensive suit. "Isabel Grant," he said. She turned. "Yes." He extended his hand. "Edward Caldwell." Her stomach dropped. But she shook his hand. Firm. Professional. "Mr. Caldwell." Edward smiled slightly. "I won't take much of your time. I just wanted to introduce myself." He paused. "And to say I'm sorry." Isabel's expression didn't change. "For what your son did?" she asked carefully. "For raising a son who thought he had the right to do it." The words were quiet, but heavy with meaning. Isabel studied him. "He's trying," Edward continued. "I don't know if that matters to you, but I thought you should hear it from someone other than him." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card, set it on the table between them. If you ever want to talk about investments, about people, about anything, my door is open." He stepped back. "Thank you for your time, Ms. Grant." He walked away. Isabel looked down at the card. Edward Caldwell, CEO, founder. She picked it up, turned it over. On the back, written in pen, "Some lessons cost more than money. He's learning." Slowly, Isabel slipped the card into her bag, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled, just slightly. That night, she opened her laptop, stared at the email Ethan had sent 3 weeks ago. "I'm sorry." 2 words. No demands. No expectations. Just accountability. She clicked reply. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed, "I know." 2 words back. She hit send and closed the laptop. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't an invitation. It was recognition that he'd heard her, that he was listening. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For now. 4 weeks after the incident, Isabel received a package. No return address. Just her name, handwritten. Inside, a book. Hardcover. Well worn. Blind spot. Hidden biases of good people. No note. No card. Just a single page marked with a folded corner. She opened it. Found a passage highlighted in pencil. "We often mistake our position for our worth, our authority for our insight, and our voice for the only one that matters." In the margin, handwritten, "I'm sorry I didn't listen." She recognized the handwriting. Ethan's. Isabel set the book down, walked to the window, stood there for a long time, not angry, not moved, just thoughtful. The next day, she had a meeting. A new restaurant. New opportunity. The owner, Claire, 41, third-generation restaurateur, sat across from her. "I've heard about you," Claire said carefully. "About how you evaluate." Isabel nodded. "And?" Claire hesitated. "My staff is nervous. They know you'll be watching." "Good," Isabel said. Claire blinked. "Good. If they're nervous, they care. It means they understand that how they treat people matters." She leaned forward. "I don't evaluate businesses, Claire. I evaluate culture. And culture starts with awareness." Claire studied her. What happened at Harlow and Vine? Was that about one person? Or the whole place? Isabel considered the question. Both. One person revealed what the system allowed, what the culture tolerated. She paused. "If your staff is nervous, that's a good sign." Claire nodded slowly. "When do you start?" Isabel smiled. "I already have." Across town, Ethan sat in a board meeting. His father at the head of the table. The presentations dragged. Numbers. Projections. Strategy. But Ethan's mind was elsewhere. The book. Whether she'd received it. Whether she'd opened it. Whether it mattered. Michael caught his eye from across the table. Raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" Ethan nodded slightly. But he wasn't sure if that was true. After the meeting, Edward pulled him aside. "Walk with me." They walked out into the late afternoon sun. "You've been different," Edward said. Not a question. An observation. "I've been trying," Ethan said. "I know." They walked in silence. Then, "Daniel Frost called me yesterday. Isabel Grant is evaluating another property. One of his competitors." Edward glanced at his son. He wanted to know if there was any way to repair the relationship. Ethan stopped walking. What did you tell him? I told him that wasn't my call to make, and that even if it were, I wouldn't. Because some things can't be transactional. Ethan looked away. I sent her a book. Edward raised an eyebrow. About bias. About not listening. I wrote something in the margin. What did you write? That I'm sorry I didn't listen. Did she respond? Ethan shook his head. Good. Ethan looked at him sharply. Good. If she'd responded right away, it would mean the gesture was enough. But it's not. And you know that. Edward's hand rested on his son's shoulder. You're not owed forgiveness. You're not owed a response. You're not owed anything. His grip tightened slightly. But you keep doing the work anyway. Not because it'll fix what happened, but because it's who you need to become. That night, Isabel sat at her kitchen table, the book in front of her. She'd read the marked passage 3 times. Read the handwritten note in the margin a dozen more. I'm sorry I didn't listen. 7 words. Simple. Direct. No excuses. No justifications. No requests. Just acknowledgement. She picked up her phone, opened a new message, stared at the blank screen. Then, she set the phone down, picked up the book instead, and kept reading. 2 days later, Ethan received an email from an address he didn't recognize. Subject line. Blind spot. He opened it. 1 sentence. I'm reading it. That's all. No signature. No context. But he knew. He stared at the screen for a long time, then closed the laptop, leaned back, and for the first time in weeks, he exhaled. Not relief. Not absolution. Just a beginning. Michael stopped by that evening, found Ethan on the terrace, staring out at the city. You look almost human again. Ethan smiled faintly. Almost. Michael leaned against the railing. So, what now? I keep going. Just like that. Just like that. Michael studied him. No grand plan. No strategy to win her back. Ethan shook his head. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Ethan was quiet. Then, being someone I can live with. Michael nodded slowly. That's the right answer. They stood in silence. The city lights flickering below. Somewhere out there, Isabel Grant was reading, thinking, deciding, and Ethan, for the first time, wasn't trying to control the outcome. He was just waiting and becoming. 6 weeks after the incident, Isabel stood in the kitchen of Claire's restaurant. Day 43 of her evaluation. The lunch rush had just ended. A young server, Leo, 19, dropped a tray. Glasses shattered across the tile. Everyone stopped. Leo froze. Face flushed. Hands shaking. Claire appeared from the office. Walked over. Looked at the broken glass. Then, at Leo. You okay? She asked. Leo nodded quickly. I'm so sorry, I asked if you're okay. Not about the glasses. Leo blinked. Yeah, I'm okay. Good. Then let's clean this up together. She grabbed a broom. Handed Leo the dustpan. They worked side by side. No lecture. No reprimand. Just problem solved. Isabel made a note in her book. Later, during her debrief, she brought it up. The dropped tray. You handled that well. Claire shrugged. He's a good kid. Mistakes happen. They do. But not everyone responds the way you did. Claire was quiet. I used to be different. When I first took over, I thought being tough meant being hard. That demanding perfection meant never accepting failure. She paused. Lost a lot of good people that way. What changed? Claire smiled sadly. My mother got sick. Stage 4. 6 months. She looked down. I asked her what she regretted most. You know what she said. Isabel waited. She regretted the people she broke. The ones who left because she couldn't see past their mistakes to their potential. Claire's voice softened. She told me leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about making sure everyone else knows they belong there. Isabel closed her notebook. Your mother sounds wise. She was. I just wish I'd learned it sooner. That evening, Isabel sat in her apartment. Laptop open. The evaluation report on the screen. She'd been working on it for 2 hours. And for the first time in months, she was going to say yes. She typed the final line. Investment approved. $30 million over 3 years. Culture assessment. Exceptional. She saved it. Sent it. Leaned back. Her phone buzzed. Claire. Thank you for giving us a chance. Isabel typed back. You earned it. She picked up the book Ethan had sent. She'd finished it 2 days ago, but kept coming back to one passage. Not the one he'd marked. A different one. Change doesn't happen because we want it. It happens because we can't live with who we were. She thought about that. About Ethan. About whether people could really change. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello. Silence. Then, Miss Grant. The voice was older. Measured. Yes. Who is this? Edward Caldwell. Isabel sat up straighter. Mr. Caldwell. I apologize for calling unannounced. I wanted to thank you. Isabel frowned. For what? For the book. I know you didn't send it. My son did. But you responded. You told him you were reading it. He paused. That was more than he deserved. And it changed something in him. Isabel didn't know what to say. Mr. Caldwell. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not asking you to forgive him or give him another chance. His voice was steady, quiet. I'm just thanking you for seeing him as someone capable of change. Isabel's throat tightened. Why are you telling me this? Edward was quiet. Because I spent 30 years building a company. And I'm proud of that. He paused. But I also spent 30 years teaching my son that success meant being the loudest voice. That confidence meant never questioning yourself. That leadership meant always being right. His voice dropped. And when he repeated those lessons back to you, I realized I'd failed him. Isabel closed her eyes. I'm not asking for absolution. I'm just acknowledging the harm, the pattern, the culture I created. He exhaled slowly. My son is learning. Slowly. Imperfectly. But he's learning. Another pause. And so am I. The line went quiet. Thank you for your time, Ms. Grant. He hung up. Isabel sat there. Phone still pressed to her ear. Heart pounding. She set it down. Picked up the book again. Opened to the passage Ethan had marked. We often mistake our position for our worth. Read the handwritten note. I'm sorry I didn't listen. And for the first time, she believed him. Not because of the gesture. Not because of his father's call. But because she'd seen the same realization in Claire. The same painful awakening. The same slow, uncomfortable process of becoming someone different. She picked up her phone. Opened a new message. To Ethan. Her fingers hovered. Then she typed. Coffee. Thursday. 10 a.m. Neutral location. One conversation. No expectations. She hit send before she could change her mind. 3 minutes later. I'll be there. That's all. No exclamation points. No relief. No gratitude. Just acknowledgement. Isabel set the phone down, looked out at the city, and wondered if forgiveness was even the right word, or if it was something else entirely. Something harder. Something slower. Something like witnessing. Thursday, 10 a.m. A small cafe. Midtown. Isabel arrived first. Chose a table near the window. Ordered black coffee. Waited. At exactly 10 a.m., Ethan walked in. He looked different. Thinner. Tired. But his eyes were clearer. He walked over. Thank you for this. Isabel nodded toward the chair. Sit. He sat. Ordered nothing. Waited. Isabel studied him. You look terrible. Honest. Not cruel. Ethan almost smiled. I haven't been sleeping well. Guilt. Yes. Isabel sipped her coffee. Good. Ethan nodded. I deserve that. Silence. Real. Isabel set down her cup. I didn't come here for an apology. I know. Then why did you come? He was quiet. Because you asked. And because I want you to know I've been listening. Really listening. His voice steady. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a second chance. I just wanted to sit across from you as equals, and let you decide if that's even possible. Isabel measured every word. You sent me a book. Because it was the first one that made me understand what I'd done. Not just to you, but to everyone I've dismissed. He looked down. I read it 3 times, and every time, I saw myself. His jaw tightened. I saw the man who thought being right was more important than being kind, who thought success gave permission to teach people who never asked. He exhaled. Who thought he was helping. And now I know I wasn't. That's it. Now I know intent doesn't erase harm. That the people I hurt don't owe me understanding just because I finally see what I did. His voice dropped. You don't owe me anything, Isabel. Your father called me. Ethan blinked. What? To thank me for responding to your book. His face paled. I didn't ask. I know. He also said he was learning too. That he'd taught you to be the way you were. She paused. The question is, are you really seeing the cost? Every day. And it's harder than I thought. Isabel almost smiled. Good. She paused. I approved an investment this week. Ethan didn't ask if it was connected to him. Just nodded. You're not going to ask? No. Because it's not my business. And because not everything is about me. Isabel continued. The owner used to be like you. Demanding. Unforgiving. She changed because she couldn't live with who she'd become. Her eyes held his. Can you? Ethan didn't look away. I don't know. That's honest. It's true. I want to believe I can be different. But I've spent my whole life being rewarded for the exact behavior I'm trying to unlearn. He paused. So I don't know if I can change. I just know I have to try. Isabel was silent. Then, I'm not going to tell you it's okay. I know. I'm not going to give you absolution. I know. And I'm not going to invest in anything connected to you. I understand. Isabel leaned forward. But I will tell you this. What you did wasn't an isolated mistake. It was a pattern. A culture. Her voice firm. Not unkind. Breaking that doesn't happen with one apology or one book. It happens over years. In small moments. When no one's watching. Her eyes held his. So if you're serious, you don't do it for me. You don't do it to fix your reputation. You do it because it's right. And you keep doing it. Even when it's hard. Even when it doesn't fix what you broke. Ethan's throat worked. I understand. Isabel stood. Pulled out a 20. Set it on the table. Coffee's on me. She turned to leave. Stopped. Looked back. What you did hurt me. But it clarified something. She paused. I invest in character. In the willingness to see harm and choose differently. Her expression softened slightly. If you ever become that person, really become that person, maybe we'll talk again. She walked to the door. Paused. And, Ethan. Yeah. Keep reading. Then she was gone. Ethan sat alone. The 20 on the table. His untouched water. The empty chair. He sat there 15 minutes. Not checking his phone. Just sitting. Thinking. Becoming. Finally, he stood. Left the 20. Walked out into the bright morning. He pulled out his phone. Opened his notes. Wrote. Day 1. Again. Then started walking. Not toward his office. Just forward. Learning to occupy space differently. Learning to listen. Learning to see. Across the city. Isabel sat in her office. Next evaluation starting Monday. New restaurant. New people. She picked up her notebook. Flipped to the page about Ethan. Added one final line. Witnessed. Documented. Decided. Done. She closed the book. Set it aside. And turned toward the next thing. Some moments change everything. Not because of what was said. But because of what was finally heard. Isabel Grant didn't need validation. She didn't need an apology to feel whole. She needed accountability. Witnessing. Change. And Ethan Caldwell learned the hardest lesson of his life. That power without humility is just cruelty in a suit. That success without character is hollow. And that some mistakes can't be undone. Only learned from. If this story made you think. If it reminded you of a moment when you were seen. Or a moment when you failed to see someone else. If it challenged you to look at how you occupy space in the world. Then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Not just for more stories. But because these conversations matter. Because how we treat people when no one's watching defines who we really are. Leave a comment. Tell me, have you ever been underestimated? Or have you underestimated someone else? What did it teach you? And if this story resonated, if it stayed with you, share it. Because someone in your life needs to hear this. Someone needs to know that dignity isn't negotiable. That change is possible. And that the most powerful sentence isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the quietest. The one that forces someone to finally listen. Thank you for being here. For watching. For thinking. I'll see you in the next story.